Good evening and welcome to Here's My Two Cents with me, your host, Keith, 2 Cent Sanders. We are live everywhere. I start every show by saying that, but we got to list them off. We're live on Facebook, on Right America Media. We're live on YouTube now, my channel, Here's My 2 Cents. I want all of you to go over there. You here on TikTok, we're live on TikTok as well. Maybe we're going to add Twitter and Insta and all that cool stuff, but we're live. We're absolutely everywhere. We got a ton to talk about tonight. We have so much to talk about. I swear I say this every week. I get done with the show and I say, what on earth am I possibly going to talk about next week? I'm starting to sound like a broken record. But of course, there's just an absolute ton going on right now. I will say that there's some good news this week. We have some genuine good news, but I'm going to make you wait. You guys are going to have to wait. You at home, you here at TikTok, you're going to have to wait. Your boy 2 Cent has some really, really good news. Stick around. You're really going to like that. I'm going to make you wait. I'm going to make you wait. You guys don't just get everything off the bat and then, oh, 2 Cent had some good news tonight. I'm out of here. No, you're going to stick around. You're going to stick around for the bad news. If I got to read all about it and watch the videos and I got to see all this stuff that's going on, then you got to stick around with me too. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for being here. Spread the word to your friends. I know you probably were told by somebody else and that person was a really trusted friend and you said, I'm going to go check out 2 Cent. And if you've been here, you've been telling your friends, and we need to keep pushing this conservative message. That's a little tease hint to the good news for later. I'm not going to give it all away. But if you've seen me here before, if you've watched me on TikTok, I'm giving you guys a new angle. If you like it, let me know. If you've seen before, normally the view isn't like this. Like I was telling K-Soak right before this, I kid you not, I was getting my setup ready and my monitor started to tip over in slow motion. And in my head, I said, I can get that. I can get that. I'm not getting that. And it just crashed. And I picked it up and it looked okay. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm going to be all right. And I see Juan's getting my stuff up there tonight. Juan, did you get my handles? TikTok, YouTube. All right, I'm getting the thumbs up. We got all the names. All right, let's see what we got here tonight. Anyway, I broke my monitor and I have this giant screen in front of me and I can see everything. And I don't know. I think it looks a little crazy, but we're going to have some fun with it tonight. Let's get into the meat of this week. I'm ready. You're ready. You've been waiting all week. I put a ton of time into this, so let's get going. The first thing I have to say right off the bat, and I'm going to spend a little time on this one tonight. The first one I have to say is the biggest story in the country tonight is one that I cannot talk about. And it really frustrates me and it really upsets me because we live in the land of the free. We have a constitution. The constitution wasn't enough. They put 10 amendments in. They gave us the Bill of Rights, which had 10 amendments. They continue to build on the amendments to make sure that we had all the rights protected. Because remember, government doesn't afford rights. Government protects our rights. And if you look at the first 10 amendments, they all actually say further what the government cannot do, shall not infringe upon. They looked at the Constitution and said, this is not restrictive enough. We need 10 amendments right now that further clarify not what the American people can do, but what the United States government cannot do. Real quick, I'm going to digress here real quick. As a student pilot, I'm a pilot if you didn't know that. You can always tell because they'll tell you. When I was training, I had an instructor that I flew with once who was actually from Australia. And he actually told me in their country, it's the exact opposite. Whereas everything in this country is legal until we pass a law that says it's illegal. In his country, everything is illegal unless there is a law that says you can do it. So that's an exact opposite of what we do here. And these are the freedoms that I think people in America absolutely take for granted. We have the freedom to do what we want unless we as a society have passed a bill to make it a law and used a representative body to do that, that would then say, no, that's illegal, and we've agreed to it. And then we have a checks and balance system that's all there as well to make sure the government isn't infringing upon your rights. So I just really wanted to draw the line. I was shocked at this. As an American, as having served in the military, I've served with Australians before when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm a war hero as well, if you guys didn't know that. These are jokes. We're allowed to make jokes. However, I was not aware that they had a system where everything was illegal until their government said it was legal. Imagine that. You have to rely on your government to tell you that you can do something. Here in this country, we are allowed to do what we want unless we have decided. With all that being said, the biggest story in the country right now, I can't talk about. I'll give you the topic. It's the Derek Chauvin trial in regard to George Floyd. And you can see me already trying to carefully pick my words. I'm a regular person just like you. I have a job. I don't do this for a living. I do this because I want to help keep a conservative message going forward. That's why I encourage so many of you over here and on here when you find me on YouTube to stay with the smaller places, because we are real people that are giving a conservative viewpoint. K-Soak does a fantastic job of getting that conservative message out. You guys can also find Council of Colonels on Thursday nights. You can find The Savvy Truth, one of our actual youngest and probably one of our most intelligent contributors that we have. She pushes a strong conservative message, Loaded Mike, and so on. Juan, who's our producer, has put together this team because we're real people that are putting out a conservative message. And normally by this point, I've already given you the rundown of what we're going to talk about. I've given you a catchy phrase, but this is so important. And it's got me so upset this week. I can't talk about this story because I don't want to get shut down. The government is not infringing upon my rights, but when they have a complicit social media empire that will silence dissenting opinion, they don't have to infringe upon our rights. And I'm really upset about it. And I'm a real human being. And I live in America and I'm a veteran. And I have long said the day that we no longer have freedom of speech is a day that we've lost everything. Everyone that's fought before me, which are the reasons that I served, my father, my grandfathers, everyone that I wasn't related to, that I saw marching on the streets on Memorial Day and 4th of July and Veterans Day, all of them that served before us was for nothing if we don't have these rights anymore. And the biggest story, I'm on a news affiliate, Right America Media, a news outlet. I talk about this stuff because it's important. I'm a citizen. I mentioned how we all have a right to say these things. I am genuinely worried something will be taken out of context, something will be just pulled apart and twisted and turned. I have to keep a job. I have a family to take care of. And I wanted to make that very clear to everyone that unfortunately, I can't talk about the biggest topic this week. I'm sorry, I can't. We have to stay away from this one because we have to stay on. I fear that they're just waiting for someone, not necessarily me, but waiting for someone to slip up and say something. Maybe they said it and it was stupid. Maybe they said it and it was horrible. They want to paint all of us with that. I'm sure you've seen the memes where if anyone says anything contrary to the main narrative, and you see me talking around this, if you see anyone talking around the main narrative, they're getting labeled. And they want to label all of us that way. And I'm sorry, no more apologies. One more apology. I'm sorry, we can't talk about that one tonight. Moving on. Let's get into the meat of this week. Here we go. The border, massively out of control. Voter ID is now voter suppression. Biden is going to spend all the money ever. Dems definitely don't want to take your guns, but definitely do. And I'm going to do a little riffing and ranting. I've already done a little bit so far tonight, but we're going to do a little bit more later on. With all of that said, here's my 2 cents on spend, spend, spend. Government, 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 spend, 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 spend. And I really do have big news. I'm going to tease you guys. I'm going to pull this string. I'm going to keep you along. We have big news. If you follow your boy on TikTok, I went live last night. You'd already know the big news. And if you guys were over here last night, if you were on, you'd already know the big news. But I'm going to pull you guys along. You guys got to find me on TikTok at 2centksj, Twitter at 2centksj, Instagram at 2centksj. Follow your boy. I have all the good stuff. Like I mentioned, we had the Derek Chauvin trial. Can't talk about it. I'm not the right person to talk about it, and I want to stay on. However, here's something I can talk about. I can talk about how other people are talking about it. You have people on TV like Lester Holt who are saying that they're not going to give essentially dissenting opinions any credibility. I'm not the only one pointing this out. Tucker Carlson pointed it out. Others have pointed this out. This is an atrocity. This is out of control. You're to present the two sides. And God forbid the American people get to make their own decision. How they let this come out of their mouth They then hear it later and don't think to myself, wow, that sounds like propaganda. How does anybody not do that? How does anybody in a position where millions of people see them nightly and they say something along the lines of, we are not going to give a dissenting opinion any airtime, and them not see how horrible that is? Just how horrible it is. Now, you might get others like Chelsea Handler, terrible B-rate comedian who only ever gets any publicity for saying stupid stuff. I got a tweet here from her. Let me pull it up for you. Perhaps we skip trials when there is audio and video footage of the murder. So this human being here, American, can exercise her God-given right, not her government-given right. She can exercise her God-given right to say, let's get rid of due process. We have due process in this country. Every single American is entitled to due process. All of us, except for when Chelsea Handler says we have audio and video. Now, here's where I have to do some more dancing. I'm not going to specifically talk about any of the contrary facts. I'm sorry. I would like to stay on YouTube because I want to keep my message going. I'm not going to talk about things that medical examiners have said, but I will point for you to do your own research. There was more than one autopsy done. They don't agree. These are facts. These are non-controversial facts, at least in my opinion. This person could talk about how let's get rid of due process, which is nothing new. They did it to Justice Kavanaugh. That's not a problem. This person here can say another human being doesn't get, another American on top of that, doesn't get due process. Who cares, right? Who cares? We got video. Who cares that there's an autopsy? Who cares that the autopsy shows things? And I'll keep talking around it. It shows things, folks. Do a little bit of research. I'm sorry I can't present this to you. There's more than one autopsy. They do not match. I wanted to bring up these facts. I want to talk about these things, but I more want to stay on, I should say. And I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated. I've already mentioned that this isn't the government doing it, but at the same time, they're not doing anything to stop it. Once upon a time, our liberal friends were for all free speech. Didn't matter. All free speech all the time. We all want free speech. Let's get lots and lots and lots and more of it. Sorry about the cord. Now I look better. They used to say this. They used to be for it. Now we have the term disinformation and misinformation. It's really upsetting. I'm legitimately worried about this topic. I'm legitimately upset. And so with that being said, we're doing a hard turn. We're doing a hard turn. Here we go. Let's get back to the border. Well, the president is now in charge of the border. No, not Biden, not Papa Joe. I said the president, and I meant it. I'm allowed to make jokes, YouTube. Kamala has been given the nod to take over the border. Okay, she's running some of our foreign policy and our foreign affairs by talking to foreign leaders. This is a foreign matter. It deals with another country. Might as well have the leader of the free world taking care of it. Again, jokes. We're allowed to make these. That being said, no updates. It's been 8 days. 8 days since she's been tapped. No updates. No press conference. Nada. Nada. I guess we're cool with that. Press doesn't seem to have a problem with it. They made it, 63 days without the actual president doing a press conference? And once they did, they just drooled over him. They gave glowing reviews afterwards. If you follow my TikTok at 2centksj, I've done a few videos on that. If you guys are over here, go check them out. Biden was Mr. Transparency, right? Promised us. This man doesn't lie. This 47-year politician does not lie. He's Mr. Transparency. When pressed to actually give transparency at the border where the children are not being held in cages, they're pods and or jail-like conditions, very important. When he was pressed to give transparency at the border, he said, yeah, when I'm ready. When I say so. When I say so. Then eventually they toured some facility that, of course, looked fantastic. Ted Cruz got in there. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that one. and you had someone from that administration, that staff or otherwise employed by the administration, blocking his camera, and in one of the most blatant gaslighting situations I've ever seen, which is to say she was blaming him for exactly what she was doing. She kept repeating, give the people respect and dignity, give the people respect and dignity. You give them respect and dignity. Work to get them out of here. You're at 1,500% capacity. Children are sleeping on each other. Ted Cruz is a United States senator. His constituents from his state, which that border facility is at, want to know what's going on there. He has every right to be there. We have every right to see it. And they block it. But Mr. Transparency, when held to the fire, barely, said, I'll let you see it when I want you to see it, and then I'll show you what I want you to see. It's pretty gross. It's pretty gross. If I were brand new to any sort of politics, and I knew nothing about Joe Biden, I knew nothing about Donald J. Trump and Barack Obama or anything in the last 20, 30 years, and I looked at this guy and I said, wait, you're not going to let me see it? Wait, you're only going to show me what you want me to see? Does anybody who voted for Biden and or against Trump feel at all bamboozled? A little honesty would be nice. A little bit would be nice. The border itself is absolutely under a surge, and I do not care what AOC has to say. She has now turned the term surge into a racist remark because she then conflated it to say that it meant insurgency and that these are now insurgents. Nobody said that. Stop assigning motive and changing definitions. Go cry outside, standing outside of an empty parking lot. It worked for you a few years ago. Wear your all white, cry and scream, and have your histrionics, big word of the night. It's a pretty good one. Go there, scream and yell, put your weight on your knees because you're just about so ready to collapse. Go to some empty parking lot somewhere and get a press brief out of it. Get some coverage out of it. Go on Instagram Live and tell everyone that you were there and that you fought the good fight. From any press interaction with Psaki or with Papa Joe himself, they want to try to maintain that the parents aren't just taking these kids and just sending them north. They wouldn't do that. But there's footage of exactly that happening. And here's another one I was worried about showing, and this is really upsetting. It shows smugglers dropping a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old over the wall. I was this close to playing a clip of it on this show, and I didn't for 2 reasons. First, I don't want to get taken down. I could probably show the exact same clip that I was going to pull from Bloomberg and or CNN and or, but for some reason I'm worried that if I play it on my show with a modest group of people who follow me, and I thank you so much for following me, if I were to show that, I'm worried I'm going to get kicked off. Second reason, it's horrific. So that 2 cent, let them all in. Open the doors, let them all in. Let's turn off the incentive. I got a video for you for that very same thing in a little bit. Turn off the incentive. You know what? Let's go to that one right now. Hey, Juan, I'll tell you what. Can you play for me cut 2? We have Senator Graham at the border. He's got some pretty good information.
Just very quickly, instead of asking a Republican or a Democrat, why don't you ask the people in charge of policing the border what the problem is? Rather than making a political statement and a question, why don't you walk right over there and ask the guy, what the hell happened? We got a chart. I'll give it to you. This was June right here. See this spike? It was big. What did Trump do? He told Mexico, we're going to put tariffs on all your products unless you allow us to have asylum seekers stay in Mexico. What happened? It went down to a 45-year low because nobody's going to pay $20,000 to come to Mexico and wait for 4 years. The day the first plane load of kids went back to Central America, the unaccompanied minor problem went to a 45-year low. So why don't you do your job as a reporter and ask the professionals what the hell has happened in the last couple of months, and they will tell you. They told the Biden administration, if you do what you're planning, we're going to lose control of the border. They were right. I want to know who they told, and I want those people to be held accountable. I'm not going to give this up.
I think he did a pretty good job telling us what was going on there. Turn off the incentive. Put deterrence in place. When you show up day one, Joe, and you sign away everything that Trump put in place, and you get a big get a big spike and you go, well, Trump had a spike. Great, you're here now and so are these kids. When the numbers are going up and you're on a pace for a 20-year high or possibly higher, well, Trump's numbers are going up. Great, you're here now. When people say they want to see what's going inside and you say, I'll show you when I'm ready. No, they're in there now. You work for us. At some point, could somebody tell them they work for us? The media's not going to do it. You saw Lindsey Graham right there. They're not going to do it for us. You think giving hotel rooms and or releasing them directly into the United States with no return date has an effect? Do you think getting rid of the Mexico, the remain in Mexico plan has any effect? Do you think that there's an impact due to COVID? People on social media lost their ever-loving minds when Texas rescinded the mask mandate. Lost it. Said there's going to be a surge like we've never seen. They're going to kill everyone. Everyone's going to die. But those same exact people are mum. When you have known infected COVID migrants coming over the border and being released into the country, mum. Absolutely mum. Speaking of the numbers, or actually speaking of Mexico and their response to COVID, you'll remember this whole time, the United States is doing so much worse than other countries. They're even doing worse than Mexico, who's right next to us. We're doing worse than Canada. We're doing worse than everybody. And Trump kept saying, we're testing more people. It's not that we have more people that are infected. We know of more people who are infected. We're just somehow the country with a higher infection rate of the same exact virus. Of course, he was laughed at and he was mocked and he's lying and he's not telling us the truth. He's not being as transparent as Papa Joe is, obviously. We got an update. Let me get it for you. Underreported. That's another hint. You're going to find that out in a second. That's actually a hint to my good news. It's underreported. Mexico. This is off of Fox News, written by Peter Atkin. Hope I got your name right. Mexico revises coronavirus death toll up by 60%, suffering second most deaths globally. Think Trump was right? Was he lying? We know of more people. Nobody cared. But these people are coming through Mexico. These children are coming through Mexico and or are from Mexico, being dropped onto our side, put into not kids in cages, given an education. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let me read you a little bit more. A report published by Mexico's health ministry showed that by mid-February, there had been just over 294,000 deaths associated with COVID-19, a nearly 60% increase from the original published figure. Anybody go crazy about that one? Anybody lose their minds? Anybody draw a correlation to the human beings that are traveling through that country on their way to this country? Considering we now know that their numbers were released off by some 60%, you think the rest of the world got it right? The whole rest of the world did better than our country. You think their numbers are accurate? Did anyone ever actually believe those numbers? We're probably the most honest and closest to our actual numbers than any country. And I don't trust any other country. And not because of this, I never have. I don't trust anyone. I don't even trust what our numbers are, by the way. And I won't get into it because I don't want to be called some sort of a denier. I'm allowed to not agree with the numbers. I think that they have shifted what qualifies for it. That's an opinion. I'm allowed to have that. Once these kids who travel through Mexico or are from Mexico get here, what are we doing with them? Biden wants to say that they're being sent back, but they're being put in these not kids in cages. What are we doing with them? We're reuniting them with family because they come with a phone number. Joe gave that great idea out last week. They left out, they're getting an education. They're coming on over here for an education. So Jen Psaki, the press secretary, got confronted with this. And of course, she had to say, I need to give you context. Which if you've ever listened to me, you know that I know that you know that I know that when they say give context, it means let me tell you how to see that. I know you're looking at it. Let me give you the lens through which I want you to see it. So she gets asked about it. Again, I got another article here. Exclusive, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Tuesday was grilled about San Diego public school teachers volunteering to teach migrant children in person before returning to the classroom to teach the students in their own district. Psaki seemed to defend the in-person instruction while students are on spring break, saying that gives you context. Oh, it's because they're on spring break. It's not that we haven't been going to the classroom for over a year and having our teachers union saying that it's not safe and having our teachers union mandate billions and billions of dollars that hasn't been put into effect to change anything yet. It's not that we've been doing any of this stuff. It's that the children are on spring break. Oh, then another day happens and there's actual more information. The very next day, San Diego teachers give an option to teach migrant kids in person instead of Americans. It was one more day. It was one more day. Our teachers have been asked if they're interested in working at the convention center site as opposed to the work sites they're assigned to. San Diego teachers have been given the option to replace work shifts at their schools, which shifts teaching migrant children in person at the San Diego Convention Center, Fox News has learned. So if you pay taxes in San Diego, if you pay taxes as an American, because billions of our dollars have gone for these schools, your kids may or may not get taught. The same teachers and teachers unions that said they can't go into the classroom because it's dangerous are going to go into a convention center with children who have passed through Mexico, where we now know their numbers are some 60% higher than previously reported. But everything's fine. America first is wrong, right? You pay taxes, you follow the laws, you try to give your children the best that you can, but you're second to people who have just showed up, some here. No, if you just showed up, that's fine. If you came here legally, don't take that out of context. What I meant was, if you show up here illegally, you're going to get preferential treatment to the children who are here legally, who are citizens of this country, whose parents pay taxes. I'm going to bring this up some more in HR 1. We talked about HR 1 last week. I've been telling you about this. I've been sort of teasing it for a little while, but there's so much that's been going on. We finally got to HR 1 last week. Stick with me. We're going to give you a little bit more on that. There's a lot more to unpack on that one. What's happening at this border is Joe Biden's problem. You're causing it, Joe. You've given them incentive. You're giving them hotel rooms. You're giving them education. You're giving them medical treatment. You're releasing them without a return date. You've given them an incentive. You stop the border wall. You're giving them incentive and at the same time removing any obstacles, pun intended, for them actually being here. But Trump. Doesn't matter. You're the president. He had a spike in his numbers. Yep, we already talked about that. What did we do about it? Remain in Mexico plan, 45-year low. You're here now. Your policies are leading to this. Your policies are contributing to small children being dumped over the wall. That wall is 14 feet tall, by the way. 14 feet tall where they were dropped over. Back to the leader of the free world, Vice President Kamala Harris. Where are you? Where are you? What are you doing? You're in charge of the border now. Where are you? 8 days since having been tapped as the border fixer-upper. Not one press conference. Not one statement. Where are you, Kamala? Where are you? Does anyone with a press badge care? Why do I ask stupid questions? I do it every week. Every week I ask stupid questions. All of this with actual lying, not where when Trump said it was huge and they said it's not huge, it's big, that's a lie. Not where Trump said it happens a lot and they said it's not happening a lot, it happens frequently, that's a lie. Not lies like that. Truly lying about what's going on at the border. Lying through omission. Lying that the children aren't getting an education. Oh, wait, they are getting an education. Lying that we're not releasing people with COVID, but we're releasing people with COVID. Nobody seems to care. This administration, in only, a little over 2 months, is allowed to do whatever they want. It's absolutely infuriating. And we say this, and usually it's hyperbole, and our side gets in, and they say it's the end of the world, and then their side gets in, and we say it's the end of the world. They're putting through legislation that has generational impacts. They're trying to, through HR 1, which we're going to get to in a little bit, absolutely take over the election process. They have completely revamped what it is to come into this country legally, illegally. They're passing bills that spend money that doesn't even exist, will never exist, but we're going to keep paying interest on it, and we're going to have to keep raising taxes for it. This is the part of the show where I harp on midterm elections. I go live on TikTok. I'm here every week. Midterm elections. So many people forget that in between 2016, there's 2018, right? Between 2016 and 2020, there's 2018. Every single person in the House of Representatives is up for a vote. Some of the people, depending on which midterm it is, are up for a vote in the Senate. Mayors, governors, local elections, and so on. We have the midterm elections. In 2022, it's a non-presidential election cycle. There's generally a drop in participation from whoever has the White House. So in this case, Biden's got the White House. In 2022, on average, the Democrats should show up in less force than they did. That's our time to strike. That's when we go. That's when we're at the polls. That's when we take back the House. That's when we take back the Senate. And we need both so we can hold the executive branch in check. Because there is no way Joe Biden is doing this. He has an entire apparatus, which is almost entirely Barack Obama retreads. You show me anywhere in his 47-year career where Joe Biden was an advocate for massive spending, massive increase of government, reaching into how the votes are done. You show me anywhere in the last 47 years where he advocated that. He was continually voted in for being a nice guy and having the air of being a moderate. So you're going to tell me now, after 47 years, he gets into the White House and now he wants to do this? No, the people around him want this to happen. 2022, commit to it. 2022. Trump at CPAC said we have to vote in strong conservatives. I agree. And we have to stop. This was mine. We have to stop voting for names that we know. When they're getting primaried, hold them to it. Organize. If they're not voting the way you want, they're not putting that pressure in, organize. Sometimes their vote differentials when they win is a couple thousand. You get 500 people together, you're going to put some pressure on them. Speaking of HR1, speaking of voter turnout, been talking about it for a while. We finally got a chance to get into it last week. Senator Ted Cruz, who I've mentioned a couple times now, he had something I really want you to see. Juan, can you please play for me cut one?
I just came from the Rules Committee hearing on the Corrupt Politicians Act. This is the most dangerous legislation that's ever been considered by the Rules Committee. It is in the House H.R. 1, it is in the Senate S.1. That means it's the very first bill that was submitted by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, the very first bill that was submitted by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. It is their number one priority. Pause for a minute and reflect that the top priority of the Democrats is not COVID-19. It's not immunizations. It's not getting people back to work. It's not reopening schools and getting millions of kids back in the classroom. It is locking in power for the Democrats for the next 100 years. That is their overarching priority. How does it do this? The Corrupt Politicians Act mandates automatic voter registration whenever anyone has an interaction with the government, whether they have an interaction getting a welfare check, an unemployment check, whether they have a driver's license from the DMV, whether they attend a public university, everyone is registered. This bill is intended to and will register to vote millions of illegal aliens. That is exactly what the Democrats want to do with this bill, is register millions of illegal aliens. And the text of the bill acknowledges that, and it says the illegal aliens who are registered to vote, even though it's against the law for them to vote, they face no liability because they're automatically registered to vote.
I've been talking about that. That's the one I've been talking about. That's what they're trying to do. And if you say anything to the contrary, it's voter suppression. Now, last week, I talked about this for the first time, and CNN tried to debunk it, and I read that for you. Go back, take a look at last week's show. They want to say, while it could happen, it's still illegal. Yep, that makes it all okay. That makes it all okay. While it could happen, it's still illegal. You're going to register all illegal aliens because we know they're going to colleges here. If you are going to college, you're registered. 16-year-olds, registered. Felons, registered. You're not allowed to clear out the voter rolls. You're not allowed to talk about it because it's voter suppression. Now, it's illegal, right? So that's not going to happen. You have the Democrats and the entire media apparatus telling you that anything the Republicans are doing, and I'm going to show you some of this in a little bit, what the Republicans are doing is voter suppression and it's attack on voting rights. And what the Democrats are doing are expanding voter rights. You're expanding it. It's a massive, massive power grab like we have absolutely never seen before. An absolute power grab. And language is important, and that man knows it. I believe he's 9-0 in Supreme Court cases that he's taken. Master of debate, master of language. I talk about it all the time on here. Language is important. This H.R. 1 bill is actually dubbed the For the People Act. What a great name. They are so good. We need to get on that. We need to get on that. They are so good at that. He goes out here and does the right thing and labels it the Corrupt Politicians Act. You have to fight the language with language. If we just let them run around with the For the People Act, you just get the good press. There's so many people who are swayed by the clickbait, the one-liners, and they don't do the continued research, and people know that and they prey upon it. The Corrupt Politicians Act. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. This is a push for more government, more government, more government, double extra more government. I've been advocating since the election that the states individually need to address this. The prayer is being answered. Some are. Texas is going to get some passed shortly. Georgia already got one. Let's see, I'm going to read to you here in a second what the press was saying about it and then compare it to what's actually in the bill. The governor of Georgia himself wrote a piece which was published so he could talk to people about what's actually in the bill. Now pull that one up for you. Governor Brian Kemp, this is his piece here. Georgia's elections law, ignore Dems' false attacks. Here are the facts about the bill that he signed. This is from him. This is an opinion from Brian Kemp. What's actually in it? It expands access to early voting statewide by requiring 2 mandatory Saturdays and allowing local election officials the option of up to 2 Sundays. Sounds like voter suppression. SB 202, this bill that I'm talking about, requires all voters to provide a driver's license or free state ID. Voter suppression. This is the one. This is the one. This is why. They want ID. We'll get back to this one here real quick. What else is in it? For the first time, ballot drop boxes, which were not available to Georgia voters prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, are mandated. Mandated in every county. They're continuing to push falsely that they are removing them. They're mandating them. SB 202 protects polling locations from electioneering by private individuals. This is the one where President Biden wants to say that you can't give people waiting in line water. No, Papa Joe, you keep lying. And the Washington Post even said you were lying because you have also said that they've reduced the amount of time that people could vote, saying that they're shutting down the polls at 5, which is not true. It's 7 o'clock. You're lying. And you've been called out for it by your own left-leaning apparatus. Back to the water, within 150 feet of the building, you cannot approach people. It's pretty standard in some form thereof. They don't want people campaigning. They don't want people pressuring people. They don't want people intimidating people. Outside of 150 feet, go give them some water. Go give them some water. It also requires local election officials to continue tabulating votes until counting is complete. You're going to get counted. He's mandating that it's going to get counted. Another one that's in here that he didn't list is if you are in line before 7 o'clock, Papa Joe wants to say that at 5 it's shutting down. He lies when he says that. It's actually till 7. Not only is voting till 7, he went further to interpret that as if you are in line by 7. If you're in line by 7, you get to vote. And then he mandates, I'm not going to have anybody stop counting until they're all counted. What do the Democrats do? They say that it's voter suppression. It's an attack on voting rights. It's on CNN right now. You can go to CNN right now and they have it labeled with beautiful graphics. Somebody took time, people reviewed it. They decided this was the one, we're going to put it up. An attack on voting rights because of state ID mandate. That's why. The states have this right. It's in the Constitution. H.R. 1 seeks to remove that right and that power. That's why they don't want it. If not having an ID was so prevalent, nobody is going to be buying cigarettes, alcohol, lotto tickets, adult material. I'll leave that to your own imagination. Houses, cars, getting loans, opening bank accounts, cashing checks, getting medicine. Nobody would be doing any of that. Jim Jordan had a great quote, and some other people did as well. He's a congressman from Ohio. I actually saw him at CPAC. He was a lot shorter than I thought he was. He was kind of a small guy, but I digest. He said that it's racist to want an ID to vote, but not racist to want a vaccine passport. Just put that one, let it rattle around, see if you can figure it out. We know that people here illegally, getting back to the border, which is sort of consuming everything tonight. We know that California is giving them licenses. And if you have a license, you get registered. If you're getting any benefits from the government, which illegal aliens are getting in some states, you're registered. That can't possibly be to make sure that they get to vote through HR 1. No. Nobody would come here illegally. Listen to me. I'm being dead serious. Nobody would come here illegally and then do anything illegal once they got here. It's just common sense, folks. You're not going to come here illegally and then do illegal things. We know this. We already know that. And who's put the policy in place to make sure that all these people are coming over? Papa Joe. Good old Papa Joe. I don't know if you caught it. Good old Papa Joe put out a new $2.25 trillion infrastructure, $2.25 trillion infrastructure bill. I like infrastructure. I like roads. I like bridges. I like water. I like ports. I like buses. I like trains. I like airports. I like all these things. We're going to get into it here in a minute. Some 6% of that 2.25 actually goes to roads and bridges. That's what I think of. I think of roads and bridges. Some 6%. Good old Papa Joe. Money, money, money. Hubba, hubba, hubba. Who do you love? Name that movie. Name that movie. He got that $1.9 trillion through. Promised people 2,000, gave them 1,400. Lifting people out of poverty somehow. I don't think it worked. Maybe it did. I don't think it worked. It didn't work. He's not going to stop now. Got to strike while that iron is hot. Got to strike while that iron is hot. People are ready. Spend that money. Spend that money. These are investments, by the way. Keep that in mind. These are investments, folks. You're not spending money. We're going to get a return on this. And we're going to get more return than we put out. Let's see what's proposed in this. I got an article here for you on this one, too. Let me pull this one up for you. Okay, this one comes to us from USA Today News. Joe Biden wants to spend $2 trillion on infrastructure. This was written by Javier Zarachina, Joey Garrison, and George Petris. I hope I said your names correctly. I really do. What's in Joe Biden's plan? According to them, the plan, the centerpiece of Biden's economic agenda, will next need to pass Congress, where Republicans are already lining up against it. You have the transportation infrastructure for $621 billion. Let's break that down a little bit for you. We'll do more of this next week. Electric vehicles and the network of 500,000 electric vehicle stations, $174 billion. Where's that power coming from, by the way? Where's that power come from? Ain't solar power. Can't burn that coal. God forbid we have nuclear. Where's all this power coming from? We hate power. We hate it. Maybe they'll do like what they do in Canada, where they have electric buses, and then electric buses show up to diesel generators. It's one of my favorite things I've ever seen in my life. They're going to modernize bridges. I don't know how you make a bridge more modern, but I guess we'll get some Wi-Fi on the bridge. I don't know what that means. You're going to modernize public transit, and then we're going to double the federal funding because they've done a really good job with that so far. Quality of life at home. Let's see what that is. The plan would spend $213 billion to build, preserve, and retrofit more than 2 million affordable homes and commercial buildings. Let's talk about that one a little bit more. We need to dive into this a little bit more. We're going to improve the electric grid. I'm sure that's going to be transparent. That's $100 billion. Caregivers and elderly and disabled, we're going to, by federal mandate, increase the pay for those workers. I guess we're going to mandate that. There's so much more. I'm going to give you guys some more time on that. We're running a little bit low on time, and I still got to get to that good news. I told you I'd give you good news. It's an absolute disaster. It's a spending bill. It is not for infrastructure. It's for more government. It's for more government takeover. And again, you're telling me this guy who's been in office in some capacity for 47 years, who's never advocated for anything like this before, is the one who's coming up with this. You tell me that, and I'll believe you. You could sell me a modern bridge. See what I did there? I brought that back. I'm good like that. Let me ask you this. Quick question. All this modernization of bridges and roads and all these beautiful things we're going to build and railways. Who's going to build it? Who's going to build it? I don't know. A few million people with no discernible skills or education that may have recently got here. You don't even need to speak Spanish or English or any sort of dialect. You could just dig, right? Maybe people who just got here, maybe they need a job. Maybe they could build roads. I don't know. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, Papa Joe, can you be transparent with us? Can you be honest? Can you stop spending money? Was that 4 stupid questions? I believe that was 4 stupid questions. Like I said, there's a lot more. We'll break it down. Follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, at 2CentKSJ. I'm sure Juan is putting this across the bottom. What I do want to touch on real quick before we get to the good news, we got about 5 or 6 more minutes. What I do want to get on is how you're going to pass this. Because right now, my savvy followers know that we have a 50-50 in the Senate. They're going to pass whatever they want through the House. We got a 50-50 at the Senate. You need 60, right? We need that 60 vote threshold. We got to get there. Actually, it's 66. You need 2/3. Well, they have this neat little gift called budget reconciliation. So in fairness, Trump used it to get the tax cuts passed. They used it for the $1.9 trillion relief. They're going to use it again here. Essentially, what it does is it allows them to pass anything that has to do with budget or deficit or so on with a pure majority. So you just need 51. Well, if we have 50 and they have 50, we got a deadlock, right? No, unfortunately, the president of the Senate, who's probably going to be president of the United States by October, is the casting vote. So it looks like they're just going to push this one through. This is why we're supposed to get bipartisanship in what we're doing. I'm not going to sit here and advocate for full conservative principles, absolute capitalist competition in everything that we do, because too much of that is not right. Which is why I could stand firmly on my own 2 feet and say I can't advocate for pure liberalism, liberal policies, liberal spending. Because I could be honest and say I don't want 100% of my side, and that always comes from me saying I don't want you to ever have 100% of your side. This is not your beloved democracy. This is what's called tyranny of the majority. We've talked about that on this show before. Tyranny of the majority. If 51% of the people want your bike, they take your bike. That's what they're doing here. I'm really envious, actually. I wanted you guys to go back to the beginning of President Trump's term. He was trying to pass the border wall. We had the House. We had the Senate. Congressman, I believe from Wisconsin, Paul Ryan, would not take up a vote to fund the wall. Democrats get in, whatever they want. And we're all going to say yes, except for perhaps Manchin or Sinema. Manchin's from West Virginia. Sinema's from Arizona. They're sort of our last bastions of hope. But I think they'll cave. I think they're going to cave. I'm envious. I'm not joking. Republicans can't unify like this. We can't be of one hive mind. And it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. Paul Ryan, that's on you. We don't have the wall because of you. What else do they want to pass? We got a little bit of time. I think we got a little bit of time on this one. We got a little bit of time. What else do they want to pass? Common sense gun reform. In the wake of any mass shootings, this happens. It's always mass shootings immediately followed by common sense gun reform. Real quick, what counts as a mass shooting? 4 or more. Why is that important? That's important because when you go to 3, you introduce a whole new group to who's doing the shooting. I'm going to dance around this one, but we're going to get into it by citing a CNN article here in a moment. When you lower it to 2 or 3 people, there are certain instances in certain areas. These areas are usually heavily Democrat-controlled areas. These are usually places that already have very strict gun laws. They made a mistake. Somebody over at CNN actually did some journalisming. I stole that from, I think Ben Shapiro says that one. They've actually done some journalisming here, and it shows they have a narrative problem. It shows they have a narrative problem. Let me pull it up for you. We got a little bit of time. I really want to get into this one for you real quick. So they want to make a point that there's a lot of mass shootings going on, but unfortunately, they then have to talk about where those mass shootings happened. Headline from Madeline Holcomb over at CNN. At least 20 mass shootings have taken place in the 2 weeks since the Metro Atlanta spa attacks left 8 dead. Real quick, I'm going to break down some of them for you. March 31st, Orange, California. basically LA. 4 people, including a child, were killed. March 31st, Washington, D.C., heavily gun controlled. 5 people were shot. March 28th, Cleveland, Ohio, high gun control. March 28th, Chicago, Illinois, which is a war zone, high gun control. Essex, Maryland, near Baltimore, high gun control. Chicago, high gun control. Yazoo City, Mississippi, I have no idea where that is. March 27th, River Gorge, Illinois. That's a made-up place. I looked it up. It's a made-up place. I don't know what happened. Well, maybe they misspelled something. March 26th, Virginia Beach. That's not quite Northern Virginia, but it's pretty close. Again, Chicago, Illinois. Again, Norfolk. Memphis, Tennessee. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Aliceville, Alabama. Boulder, Colorado. Philadelphia again. Dallas, Houston, Oregon, Stockton, and then Atlanta, Georgia. They got a big old picture here of where it happened. Of all the ones that I just read to you, this is the only one that mentions the race of some of the victims and the race of the gunman. Go back and take a look yourself. Factually correct. I'm citing an article. 8 people, including 6 Asian women, were killed when a white gunman stormed the spas, the police said. It's pretty gross. It's pretty gross. No mention of the race in any of these other ones. Thought we wouldn't notice? I noticed. It's pretty gross. It's absolutely pretty gross. Let's see what we got for time. I got a little bit more time for you. You know what? I hit my limit. I promised you good news. I had people over here telling me they thought I was fired up. I'm pretty fired up. I've got really good news. I think we did pretty well tonight. I wasn't sure that we had enough. And then, of course, as usual, we were up against it. So come back next week. We're going to have a lot more to talk about. I do this every week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Right America Media on Facebook, ramtv.live. Here's my 2 cents on Facebook. I promise you good news. I've been stretching it along. Due to my followers on TikTok, a great content creator, young, bright, intelligent, motivated, and highly accomplished writer for Daily Wire named Chrissy Clark. Look her up on all the platforms. Incredibly intelligent, very good at what she does. She was asking for your favorite conservative content creator. I went to you all. I said, blow her up. Let her know about your boy. 2 Cent, we were already following each other. And you can't go into her comment section and scroll and not see 2 Cent. It's 2 Cent, 2 Cent, some random person. 2 Cent, 2 Cent, 2 Cent. Much bigger name. 2 Cent, 2 Cent, 2 Cent, 2 Cent. So as a result of you all here, thank you so much. I was interviewed yesterday by Chrissy Clark from the Daily Wire. If you don't know the Daily Wire, you need to because it's Ben Shapiro's outlet. I was interviewed and I'm going to be featured along with some other creators in an article to come out in 2 weeks. So things are happening around here. She was absolutely a pleasure to talk to. I hope that I get to talk to her some more in the future. I'll keep you guys updated over here. I'm going to be featured in dailywire.com, the outlet started and ran by Ben Shapiro. Some good news. I told you we'd have good news tonight. With all that being said, that has been my 2 cents on money, 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 spend, spend, spend. Have a good night.